Let's just jump straight into your acting. When did you first start acting?
So it's almost 10 years now. December 2010-ish. I was in a completely different career. It's a lifetime away now, but it was in a career that I was no longer happy with. I was in a very low place, and I don't deal with regret very well. So I'm very much, I need to know. So yeah, 22nd, 23rd December, I phoned work. I was like, I'm not feeling this. And what had happened was I'd watched Transporter that morning,
Right.
with Jason Statham, and running around the bus garage, massive fight sequence, and it's the iconic moment where he puts the motor oil on the floor and uses the bicycle pedals to do this like sort of beautiful fight sequence, which is like equal parts brutal and equal parts choreography. And so yeah, I phoned work and I was like, I'm not coming back. That this, you can take this as my notice. And yeah. So from there, I knew nothing, completely untrained, no contacts in the industry, nothing at all. But I made myself a free profile on, I think it might have been Star Now, thinking about it now.
Mm-hmm.
Made a free profile on the website, and then first week in January, so barely a couple of weeks in, with just some sort of really shoddy like photos that I'd taken, just as like, didn't know what a headshot was, didn't know what a showreel was. I got a phone call. Can you come in and do an audition for us? And it was for this drug awareness video. And I mean, it's probably testament to how ropey I must have looked. So yeah, so went in, and I think it really played to my advantage of not knowing what I was getting myself in for. That it was probably the most natural casting I've ever done. And it was to play this guy who met the guy, a lovely guy. He was a drug addict, alcoholic, all these sort of things. He had a really awful life, and he reeled it all off to me. And in comparison, I've been completely sheltered compared to that. So he said all this stuff to me. I was completely dumbstruck. And then the director was like, right, everything you just heard, deliver it to camera. And so yeah, that was like trial by fire. But it was really cool because the feedback I got from it, people actually were messaging me saying, we need to have a chat. I was like, about what? And they were like, we didn't know you had drug problems and alcohol problems. I was like, I don't. So for me, it was like, that was the perfect feedback. And I mean, if I'd been awful at it, if it was one of those things where like I just couldn't get into it, at least I'd know. And that was the whole regret thing. It was like, at least I know. And yeah, I just ran with it from there.
How many acting lessons had you had at that point?
Literally zero.
Oh wow!
No performance training, no formal acting development or progression or anything like that. No workshops. It was purely a case of completely green going into a situation. But it was great, and chatting. I'm one of those people where I'd rather learn everything and know everything, and I'd rather the burden of knowledge than the burden of ignorance. And it was one of those where like, yeah, it gave me a taste for it, and immediately I was like, right, I need to know more. I need to understand this, and I have done a lot of training since then. But prior to that, literally nothing.
It's interesting you say that, actually, because that's the same experience I had. I started acting last year, and it was purely off just someone's suggestion. Like, I'd never done acting before. The last time I'd even done anything close was like at school, and
Yeah,
you know, it's fun, but I never really thought anything of it. I was always like music guy and creative guy, you know. I just, yeah. And then I did the role, and I was like, huh, okay, this comes quite naturally. This feels good. I might do this more. And then I just have been doing it ever since. Was it kind of like that in that first experience? Did it kind of just
yeah.
naturally came? Yeah.
I think it's very rare for actors to be square pegs in round holes. I think if you don't have a taste for it, if you don't want it, it's never going to work. And you'll know as soon as you get on a film set, you'll know as soon as the cameras start rolling, and you're either going to be deer in the headlights, or you're going to thrive. And I mean, I've had it recently where I had 5 pages of dialogue dumped on me 20 minutes before shooting, with an accent, with various other things going on, with a load of complicated terminology and stuff like that. But for me, it was like, challenge accepted. Let's do this. And I think you're either one or the other. There's no sort of middle ground with that. It's either you'll embrace it and run with it, or you'll want out straight away. I think it's pretty much the same with yourself. Like it's a case of, if you got that taste for it, it was the right thing. It was meant to be. And if it was like, I'm not feeling this, you just go.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you with that. I think that kind of applies to everything really in life. Like, I think there is always this like sense of fear as well. Like you spoke about like your previous career, and you're like, one day it's like, yeah, I just can't hack this anymore. And I had a similar realization, I think, either at university or the subsequent years after. But I was kind of thinking like, you know, this is fine, this pays the bills, but I don't feel like, I don't love this, you know. And I feel like if you really want to be happy in life, you need to be doing something that's, you know, that you're motivated by, that you wake up in the morning, you're like, let's do this. I want to do this. I want to immerse myself in this. And I certainly,
there's a few cliches that work with that. Cause, I mean, I'm not one for like, my Instagram will say different, but I'm not one for like just spouting motivational, script. But, it's that whole thing of, you've got to have a love for something, otherwise you'll end up resenting it. And that's a big thing with the performance arts in the first place. The reason people perform and the reason people get into that is purely because of that love for it, and that willingness to go down different avenues and take their passion further. And if you love it, you don't work, because it's that enjoyment. And it is that cliche, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And that's the real testament to it.
I remember the first time I heard that saying, I was like in a bad place in my life. I was sort of, not because when you say this, people always assume like, oh, he was doing drugs or something. And it's like, not necessarily. I think like for me, I had to beat that negative mindset that I think a lot of people have, where it's like anytime they even sort of contemplate doing something, taking a risk, it's like, oh no, but what about this? Oh, I don't think I can do this. And if you have people around that reinforcing that, it's even worse. So
very much.
Yeah, you've got to like overcome that.
It's the key thing now that mental health is such an important facet of it, and having that sort of positivity about things is incredibly important. And if you have negative reinforcement, that's always going to stop you and hinder you. And it's either you've got to remove yourself from that toxic environment in the first place. I mean, I've never worked a normal job in my life. I mean, I was a barista maybe for like 6 months when I was 17, but that was while I was doing another career and another thing and another thing. So it's very much a case of like, if you find yourself in the environment you don't like, you've either got to leave it, or you're going to get sucked in and consumed by it. And you're right. The whole thing about when you say you're in a bad place, people do go straight to the very end of what the negative could possibly be. But there's this whole grey area in the middle of what a bad thing is. And I mean, I've had my own bouts with depression and comfort eating and things like that, and so very, very ugly things. But if you never address them, that consumes you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I often, unfortunately, suffer with that too. And the one thing that I've found in terms of like overcoming it is working, burying myself in projects, having stuff to work towards. Because I feel like, I don't want to get too far off the path, but since we're talking about it, in the previous positions I've had over the years, you know, in like customer service or marketing or whatever, it would always get to a point where there were things that I began to hate, and you know, it sits on you and it weighs on you, and there's always a point where, like, I think like people get pushed, do you know what I mean, like to their limit, and it's like, am I going to quit and just work somewhere else, or am I going to actually do something about it and change
Yeah,
things? And that's
you've
certainly,
either got to work for your goals, or you're going to work for someone else's at the end of the day. And that it is very black and white. Your passion and drive is elsewhere, in which case you're just doing that to sustain, or you've put your passion and your goals into your work, in which case you start to enjoy your work more.
what do you mind if I quickly ask, like, what were you doing just before you made the transition to acting? Like, what was the
Yeah,
role in
I was working in football.
football?
I was goalkeeper coach at Brentford, and working with the England ladies setup.
Wow.
And it was being a goalkeeper was something I did have a passion for. I think you have to be a little bit special to want to have footballs kicked at you perpetually. But yeah, it was one of those where it just wasn't the right environment for me. As much as it's quite a positive environment overall, there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that are quite ugly. And for me, that was sort of dragging me down and sort of spiraling quite a bit. So yeah, not the it, some people thrive when there's a lot of negativity around them, whereas others, for me personally, it was a case of I had to go and find my positive environment.
Yeah, fair play. Yeah, same here. I found a lot of the people I've come across in music, in, you know, the YouTube scene, acting, everything. Like, everyone loves to be there, but particularly
Yeah,
with acting. It's interesting. Like, I found I had like so much in common with the people, you know, working on the cinematography or the setup and everything. Like, they're just as excited to be there as everyone else. Do you know what I mean? It's like they love what they do, and it's very, very. I think it's one of those things as well. Like, you need to enjoy working as well.
yeah. With film and TV, you've got to want it. Otherwise, you're just not going to ever enjoy it. Because I mean, the tagline for the entire industry is "Hurry up and wait." So like,
Ain't
so
that the truth?
it is exactly that. So you will spend times like where you're sat there for 12 hours doing nothing the entire day, and then it's that rush, last minute, it's golden hour, and you've got to get everything done. You get one take and that's it, and it's never quite perfect. But if you don't love it in the first place, then you're never going to enjoy that.
I was an extra in Christopher Nolan's Tenet movie recently. I
Yeah,
just happened to be in Estonia, where he was filming one particular part, and it was exactly like you described.
mm-hmm.
And the frustrating thing for us was that, like, there was about maybe 3,000-4,000 people in this main stadium area, who were sitting the whole time, which sounds great, but actually that is kind of difficult as well, because, you know, they were there for 12 hours plus maybe 15 hours a day, I think it was. And you know, it's middle of summer, it's these people have never acted before, they're just random
Yeah,
people on
yeah,
the street, so it's like trying to explain to them, like, shut up, be quiet, do it. Like, it's, do you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to tell me or the other 15 actors that are doing it
yeah,
regularly,
yeah,
we know what to expect. But it's exactly like you said, like, we'd be waiting there all day, because I guess we were like a specialist group or whatever, but we were all dressed up really nicely, right? So we're waiting around, like, and then it would be like in the final hour, like, oh yeah, we want you to get up and do this scene now, and you're like, really?
yeah.
Like, we're all exhausted at this point. But what I would say, like, on that note is, and I imagine you can appreciate this because a lot of your roles have been a mixture. Like, there's been like extras in major movies, and then like being the lead actor as well. I think being an extra is like very kind of like, it's good if you've never had acting experience, then it's pretty cool, like, just as a first kind of initial thing. But I think once you do like a couple of them, you kind of realize, like, you don't really get much, like, you don't really get to do much acting, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like, I mean, because when I was looking at some of the roles that you were doing, I was thinking like, oh, that's interesting. You know, like you were involved with, say, like for instance, you were in a Star Wars movie, and I was like, that's got to be fun, dressing up, doing that. But the day to day is less fun. It's like fun on the first day, and then but maybe you're shooting for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or longer. Then it becomes like almost like a 9 to 5 in a way. Like you just get, because that was what it was like for us. We'd wake up, go to the set really early, get dressed, have our food, wait, and then yeah, wait until we get told to do something. Whereas I don't feel the same when I do like an actual acting piece where I'm like the lead or like a supporting actor or something, because I feel like that's rewarding. Even if you do have to wait around, you still get to act at some point. Like for you, I don't ask which you prefer, but like, how do they compare generally for you as a professional actor?
So I lucked out because I've got quite a varied skill set. So I get roped into a lot of things where a specific thing is needed, whether it be combat or
Right.
any of those sort of things where I've gone away and learned something. Or it's a case of right place, right time. So Star Wars was a perfect example of, I just finished on Fury, and I'd been on Fury from day one to wrap. And so going from Fury to Star Wars, it was one of those where it was like right place, right time, right people, and couldn't be more appreciative. For me personally, my first agent said something that was very important, and it was, I was like here, there, everywhere, just like, oh yeah, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do that. And he sat me down. He was like, you've got a choice to make. You can either be a talent or you can be the talent.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that choice of, right, I have to cherry pick what I'm doing now. And it's a longer process and it's a more arduous process. But for me, it was a case of tailoring everything down a very specific avenue. Enjoyment wise, it's horses for courses. It's whatever comes on the day. Like you luck out sometimes with some very cool stuff that you weren't expecting, whether it be combat or driving or anything like that, or you just happen to do one cool gag on that day. But it's also the days where you've got 20 pages of dialogue to get through and you're up against it and you've only got 2 hours to get it done. So for me personally, it's all of it. There is no level really in that. It's if the project's good, if the people are good, and that's the main thing for me, is working with good people. That's 100% the main thing. And I've been quite lucky. For the vast majority, I'd say like 99% of the time, I've worked with good people, and that makes everything better, even on the worst day.
But I reckon that, like, because as you said, you're multi-skilled, you can be used in different areas. Like from the director's perspective, it's like you're kind of like an ideal candidate, if you know what I mean. It's like, okay, this guy, he can act. I can just have him in the background if need be. I can use him for the stunt scenes. I don't have to employ extra like stuntmen. You know, it's like always like a multi-skilled, multi-purpose
Well, that's
guy.
the one thing I would say is the stunt guy. I mean, I've got a lot of stunt friends, and what they do is incredible. It's something that for me personally, love to perform my own stunts, but to be a stuntman, I think is an incredible talent to have. They're amazing people. Some of my closest friends as well. And for them, I stand there in awe, and I'll watch a friend fall 30 feet off something or set himself on fire or whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
Yeah, that sort of stuff is just incredible. But yeah, being multi-skilled, it can't hurt. That's the main thing with that. The point is that there's a very fine line at the very end of that where if you are, don't want to say too skilled, but if you tell everyone you can do everything, you end up doing nothing. Because you're that jack of all trades and you do your little bits, but then you're never seen as a specialist in certain areas. And so that sort of does play against you a little bit. So there's a balancing act to be done.
Given
Like
that you're
sometimes
okay,
you leave stuff off your CV or you don't put stuff in your show reel, and then it's a nice surprise that you can do it afterwards.
But given that you're doing like a lot of different things, I mean, where is your head fully at? Do you know? Because like right now, I'd say, based on what I've read, like the two main kind of things that you're focused on are acting and film producing, right? But film
100%.
producing, yeah, in your career is more of a kind of a recent thing that's happened in the last sort of 2 years from the information I have here. So like with that in mind, I mean, are you kind of saying like to the rest of those things like, okay, these are extra things I can do, but principally my head is in these two
I,
areas? Or
you have to have one main avenue. But it's kind of very much like a tree. You have to have your main health through the middle, and then you can branch out. And using the acting as the main vehicle is 100%, because with acting, I can be a public speaker, I can be a presenter, I can be a performer. I can tie all those things based on just making sure my acting is on point. And that's something where I'm the weird guy on the train that will sit there and practice voices, or will be muttering to myself about a monologue, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I'm that guy as well.
Yeah, it's great because no one sits next to you.
Yeah,
And
brilliant.
then, but yeah, so with that, it's like then I can I've used that to learn about every job in film. So I know what a gaffer does. I know what DOP does. I know what the first, second, and third do. And with that, it helped me move towards being a producer, because it was
Okay.
if you understand people's jobs, you understand how a film set works. Because a film set is a living, breathing organism in itself, and if one department doesn't work, everything else breaks down. So from that, I've been quite lucky in terms of a fantastic business partner who has been in the industry for 30 plus years now. So there's been a real sort of guiding force with that. And he's done some incredible things, like he was on Batman and Pirates of the Caribbean, and so you don't get much more high pressure environments than them. So so yeah, for me, it's having those two main points, and then everything else can branch off from that.